ADR. Promoting dialogue. It's May Day in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Transitional head Mahamat Idris Deby declared winner of Chad's presidential elections.
Mahamat Idris Deby, 3,784,000 votes, representing 61.03%.
Benin's government proposes a bill to grant citizens nationality to Afro-descendants. Nigeria's Senate approves death penalty on drugs traffickers.
It is best that those who are manufacturing and those who are selling these drugs, they should be condemned. So for me, I think this is a very good one. The National Assembly, kudos to them, the 10th Assembly.
Senegalese authority begins investigation into plane accident at Blaise-Diagne International Airport. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Augustine Coley with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast, and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. We begin in Chad, where interim president of the transition has been declared the winner of the May 6 presidential elections in the country. According to provisional results from the National Election Management Agency, Mahamat Idris Deby Itno won the presidential election in the first round. Imo Edit has the details.
The National Agency for the Management of Elections, LANCH, announced on Thursday the provisional results of the presidential election, declaring that interim President Mahamat Idris Deby had won the May 6 election in the first round with over 60% of the vote. Ahmed Bachirek is the president of the Chadian Election Management Agency.
Mahamat Idris Deby, 3,784,000 votes, representing 61.03%.
Mahamat Idris Deby knows victory extends his family's decades-long grip on power. He defeated his prime minister and closest contender, Success Masra, who garnered only 18.53%. The results are expected to be confirmed by the Constitutional Council. Success Masra had declared himself the winner of Thursday, saying that election results were being manipulated. Former Prime Minister Albert Bahimi Padeke came in third with just over 16% of the total votes cast. According to LANCH, there was a voter turnout of 75.89% in the polls, which it described as transparent.
L'Agence nationale de gestion des élections a pris toutes les dispositions.
The electoral agency has made all the necessary arrangements to organize the presidential election based on the high standards of transparency. The organization of this presidential election is an essential step towards the return to constitutional order in our beloved country following the constitutional referendum. With this massive turnout, our sovereign people have demonstrated their maturity and their clear determination to implement the democratic process in our country.
Le processus démocratique dans notre pays.
The National Agency for the Management of Elections also noted incidents including the death of an electoral agent during the polls.
Imo Edit with that report. In Mauritania, the opposition is criticizing the sponsorship system for presidential candidates. Several candidates held demonstrations outside Parliament in Nouakchott. Mauritanians will be heading to the polls in June this year, with incumbent President Mohamed Ghazouani seeking a second term in office. Candidates have begun filing their nominations with the Constitutional Council. David Vincent reports.
The opposition is objecting to a system that requires signatures from 100 municipal councillors, including 5 mayors. According to the opposition, this sponsorship system gives decision-making power to the presidential majority, which is overrepresented after winning the last municipal elections by a large margin. The opposition argues that this sponsorship system will allow the parties of the presidential majority, which control almost all the mayoralties, to select their competitors. These allegations are being disputed by the ruling party, which emphasizes that the current electoral code was adopted after consultation with the opposition. Already, 3 candidates have submitted their candidacies: President Mohamed Ould Ghazouani, Hamadi Ould Sid El Mokhtar, and Biram Da Abeid, of former candidates from the 2019 presidential election. Mauritania's presidential election is scheduled for June 29.
David Vincent reporting there. Still on electoral matters, Ghana's Electoral Commission has denied the opposition National Democratic Congress's request for the serial numbers of biometric voter registration kits deployed for the limited voters registration exercise. According to the Commission's Director of Public Affairs, the release of such information could trigger a security risk. However, the opposition NDC says the reasons cited by the EC are untenable. Let's get the details of this report with WADR's Nadi Detete in Accra.
In a statement on May 9, 2024, the Electoral Commission underscored the pivotal function of BVR kits in elections. The EC stressed that each kit has a distinct serial number which is indispensable for producing activation codes and monitoring the kit's whereabouts and transit. Consequently, sharing these serial numbers with outside parties, such as political organizations like the NDC, jeopardizes the safety and credibility of the registration procedures. Reacting to the EC via press conference, National Chairman of the NDC, Johnson Asidu Nketia, questioned what the EC had to hide as he debunked claims by the Commission that capturing the serial numbers will have adverse security implications. The party has vowed that their agents will continue recording the serial numbers.
And the logic is simple. You have so many registration kits. You claim some thief has stolen some of them. If we cannot track those that are missing, at least we can track those that are in use now. So that when we know those that are in use, then data from any other equipment that is not in use in our registration centers here would then be rejected as fraudulent data that is coming from.
But the governing NPP has criticized their opponents for their latest stance, describing it as baseless. National organizer of the NPP, Henry Nanabwache, agreed with the assertion of the EC that releasing the serial numbers of the BVR kits will compromise the security of the electoral process.
After listening to the national chairman, I was wondering whether the NDC would want to assume the responsibility of the Electoral Commission. What they are seeking or the request they are making would compromise the security of the entire election process. And that is what the Electoral Commission has said.
The limited voter registration exercise has entered day 4 today. Since the switch to the offline mode of registration, the exercise has been largely smooth. For WADR, Nadi Detete, Accra.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's head now to Cote d'Ivoire as the African People's Party, PPACR, is holding a convention today, Friday, to formalize the candidacy of its leader, Laurent Gbagbo, for the next presidential election. The former president was named candidate during an internal party meeting held in mid-March. At PPACR, the choice of his personality is unanimous, but at this stage, his status raises concerns. Though Gbagbo has benefited from a presidential pardon since August 2022, he has been removed from the electoral list. Laurent Gbagbo is ineligible because his civil rights have been suspended following a 20-year sentence of prison in the Bissau robbery affair. In parallel with this convention, his party intends to hold discussions which involve considering a political negotiation. On March 15, the PPACR sent a letter to the Prime Minister to request an interview to discuss the reinstatement of Laurent Gbagbo on the list. However, it is yet to be realized. To some legislative news now, Nigeria's Senate has approved a bill that imposes the death penalty on drug traffickers following a third reading of the 2024 National Drug Law Enforcement Agency Act. The proposal was adopted on Thursday during a committee section where senators considered a report by the chairman of the Committees on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters and Drugs and Narcotics, Senator Tahel Muguno. Usma Umra in Abuja tells us more.
An amendment to the bill proposed by Senate Chief Whip Ali Ndume suggested imposing the death sentence instead of life imprisonment for drug traffickers. The proposal sparked debate among senators. Although the initial voice vote suggested the amendment would be rejected, a second vote saw the Deputy Senate President ruling in favor of the amendment, prompting some lawmakers to express displeasure with the development. The bill was subsequently passed by the Senate after its third reading. Nuhu Isa, an advocate against drug trafficking, shared his thoughts on the development.
If you look at the history of drug abuse or illicit drug substance being used in the country, you discover that it's so enormous. It's a very huge business for those who are involved in it. What is happening in terms of banditry, what is happening in terms of secessionists and the rest, these people are motivated by this kind of drugs. So it is best that those who are manufacturing and those who are selling these drugs, they should be condemned. So for me, I think this is a very good one. The National Assembly, kudos to them, the 10th Assembly, and also the leadership of the NDLEA.
The amendment has also sparked debates among Nigerians. Here are some individuals who spoke to WADR.
I support this with all my heart, and this penalty is going to serve, as a deterrent to drug trafficker. Apart from amending this act, we should also have a good rehabilitation centers that you can rehabilitate those who have gone down into this illicit drug taking.
The World Health Organization reports that Nigeria has one of the highest rates of drug use disorders in West Africa, with cannabis, opioids, and amphetamines being the most commonly abused substances. Drug abuse has been linked to an increased risk of mental health disorders, with WHO estimating that 12% of Nigerians suffer from mental health condition. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Omar reporting from Abuja.
We remain in Nigeria, where journalists and members of some civil society organization on Thursday assembled at the Nigerian Police Force headquarters in Abuja to protest the continuous detention of a journalist with the Foundation for Investigative Journalism, Daniel Ojukwu. Mr. Ojukwu, the FIJ journalist, had gone missing on May 1, 2024, with his telephone number switched off and his whereabouts unknown to family, friends, and colleagues. He was later tracked to the State Criminal Investigation Department in Lagos. However, last Sunday, the police moved the journalist to the Nigerian Police Force National Cyber Crime Center in Abuja, where he is currently being held. The police have not filed any charges against him, neither have they given reason for his arrest and detention. Buki Shonibari, who read out a statement jointly signed by some CSOs and media organizations in Nigeria, said Mr. Ojukwu's arrest was unlawful, unconstitutional, immoral, and should not happen in any democratic society.
The recent abduction and continued detention of Daniel Ojukwu, a journalist with the Foundation for Investigative Journalism, exemplifies this disregard for the rule of law and democratic principles. Mr. Daniel Ojukwu's fundamental human rights have been blatantly violated. Even though the Nigeria police has filed no formal charges, he remains in custody. Additionally, Daniel's unlawful arrest and detention contravenes the combined reading and cumulative effect of sections 35, 34, and 41 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 as amended, which protects the right to respect for the dignity of his person, his personal liberty, and freedom of movement. Daniel Ojukwu's case is the most recent in a recurring trend of similar attacks and harassment aimed at the media and other civic actors by Nigerian law enforcement and security agents.
Although Daniel Ojukwu has not been charged, the Commissioner of Police in charge of Federal Cooperation, Vugmo Kwamo, said legal action will be taken to ensure justice is served both the petitioners and the detained journalists. Now in Benin, the government is proposing a bill to grant citizens nationality to Afro-descendants. The text will be sent for study to the National Assembly. The Beninese government presents this bill as a form of recognition for possible descendants of Beninese victims of the slave trade. Francis Boniface has more details in this report.
According to the text adopted by the Council of Ministers on Wednesday, these individuals would initially neither have the right to vote nor work in public service in Benin. The government indicates that this bill aims to assist the descendants of sub-Saharan Africans deported during the slave trade in establishing a connection with their origins. According to the authorities, any person in the world who, based on their genealogy, has sub-Saharan African ancestry, deported outside the continent as part of slavery will be eligible for Beninese nationality. These Afro-descendants could be located in various places including Haiti, Brazil, the Caribbean, or even the United States. Applicants for nationality must submit proof of Afro-descendant ancestry through official civil status documents, authenticated testimonies, or DNA tests. Once deemed eligible, they will be issued a Beninese passport valid for 3 years, acquired through recognition. To obtain a definitive nationality certificate, individuals will need to stay in Benin for a few days before the passport expires. Benin is among the countries that suffered for centuries from the slave trade. The town of Wadr was a significant embarkation port for slaves.
Here's Francis Boniface reporting there. Back here in Senegal, the Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety is investigating the circumstances that led to a plane accident at Blaise Diagne International Airport near Dakar on Thursday. The organization, which is responsible for investigating plane accidents in Senegal's territory, will publish the results of its investigations in the coming days. The Boeing 737 veered off the runway during takeoff from Wednesday night to Thursday, resulting in about 10 injuries. Expert opinions on these types of accidents are included in this report by Abdoulaye Hassan.
According to Umbai Ndimcham, an international civil aviation expert, several factors can cause these types of incidents.
Malfunctioning of the controls, non-functioning controls, strict failures known as electrical and hydraulic servitudes. There can be issues with intensity or smoke, problems with the regulation of onboard systems, engine failures, fuel contamination due to water, or impurities that can be introduced into the fuel, which can also be one of the causes of an aircraft veering off the runway.
The plane in question is a Boeing 737 operated by Air Senegal and chartered by Transair. Previously, it was operated by the Romanian company Tarom. This flight experienced an engine failure in May 2021 after departing from Egypt en route to Romania. Jibril Sako, Secretary General of the Senegal Airports Union, notes a lack of vigilance in controlling the aircraft.
This incident has raised concerns regarding this type of aircraft. We should perhaps be more vigilant regarding the safety of people and property. Additionally, since there have been issues in 2 to 3 countries where the same Boeing model had difficulty, all flights that this aircraft undertakes must be closely monitored and scrutinized.
According to the Aviation Safety Network, a platform that provides up-to-date information on plane accidents worldwide, Boeing 737s have been involved in 341 incidents, resulting in more than 700 deaths.
Abdoulaye Hassan Fight, that report. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Transitional head Mahamat Idris Deby declared winner of Chad's presidential election. Benin's government proposes a bill to grant citizens nationality to Afro-descendants. Nigeria Senate approves death penalty on drug traffickers. Still ahead, Liberia's National Police reverses initial plans to restrict commercial motorcyclists within the capital, Monrovia. We do have the guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Following a series of protests by commercial motorcyclists, the Liberia National Police has reversed its initial plan to ban commercial motorcycle activities in the city limit of Monrovia. The move to institute the no-go zone policy was intended to ensure safety and reduce the number of accidents associated with reckless driving on the part of some cyclists, something they have kicked against. WADR's Darlington Pogba reports.
The aggrieved motorcyclists resisted the imposition of the ban, accusing the government of attempting to create hardship for them.
We are calling on your attention to give us a listening to our recommendations and cries. Issues suppressing the growth, progress, and development of the motorcycle and tricycle sector in Liberia.
However, addressing the aggrieved motorcyclists, Police Inspector General Colonel Gregor Coleman noted that the government had decided to relax the restriction, but with modifications to adhere to standards.
Our concern as it relates to these enforcement measures have not been to alter people's livelihood. It has always been about safety. And coming to engaged the tricyclists and the motorcyclists have not been from a point that we just want to go after them because they're the most reckless. No, the bottom line is there's a lack of a culture of safety. We are just saying that they are the most vulnerable. If two vehicles have accident, it's iron to iron. Yeah, people do get injured as well, but the motorcyclists and the tricyclists are the most vulnerable, and that's why we decided to engage them first in these enforcement efforts.
Subsequently, Dara Scully, the head of the aggrieved motorcyclists, and others expressed their appreciation to the government for listening to their plea, promising to adhere to the modified mandate.
In an effort to ensure that a full compliance and that the cyclists are respected, that they are be able to plow the streets, and that we engage the appropriate authority, we've written the Liberian National Police, who consented to our communication, and have had internal conversations, which led to a further conversation with the Office of the Honorable Vice President, and our recommendations were put forth requesting that cyclists be given access to the main street, but be in full compliance.
It's worth noting that commercial motorcyclists are considered a significant contributor to the transport sector, particularly given their growing population. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
Politics, analyses on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
This segment of our news edition focuses on Liberia, where commercial motorcyclists have been protesting against a planned decision by the Liberia National Police to restrict their movements within the country's capital city, Monrovia, and its environs. According to the police, reports of some tragic incidents over the years are attributed to the reckless movement of cyclists within the city limit, including their failure to abide by traffic regulations. But after continuous protestations by the cyclists, the National Police Force has decided to abandon the no-go zone restrictions for motorcyclists in the capital city. However, WADR engaged the views of independent analyst Abdullahi Kyatamba of Liberia regarding the impact of the police decision on traffic regulations.
The initial approach was not well considered because it's a difficult thing. No, this is people's livelihood. This is an economy that is in bad shape. There's no job. These people are creating jobs for themselves and taking care of their families. Beyond that, you have students who use the bike to go to school. So the bike is a means for transportation for almost huge number of students. And there are areas where the taxi will not go, the buses will not go. Some schools are in areas where it's not pliable for a lot of different transportation. So the students are using that to get to other places. So if you want to change that, you have to roll it out step by step, gradually. People got to get adjusted because this is about people's livelihoods. And I think their first actions was not the best way. Equally concerned about safety issues. I think they need to place in some safety measures, and I think they're working on that. But I think if they don't do that, it would have created some serious problems because there will be blowback, there will be resistance, and that resistance will distract from a lot of things in the country.
The police authorities are saying that the motorcyclists will have to abide by the traffic regulations and be properly dressed in their full gear, including helmet, boots, and reflective jackets. Is it not a normal thing that transporters should abide by when it comes to the traffic?
I agree, totally. I think safety measures are important, but I also know there's another additional cost that will take more than enough time. These things are not cheap. It has to be timed and scheduled in a way that allows for huge adjustment because it disrupts the movement of people across the country in a lot of ways. That's one aspect. The other aspect is that if you're concerned about safety, you cannot focus on the safety on the poor side of the equation. There are rich people, there are rich businesses that trucks are destroying the roads, that are parked the wrong way and that are violating the rules. They're not being so much focused on the police in making sure these people are brought to book. They're not enforcing, the law is enforced on one side of the equation, which is on the poor people's side, bikers and ordinary people. Let us see some enforcement on the big organizations that have big trucks that are blocking the roads, that are causing safety hazards in many roads. Traveling from rural Liberia, the trucks are running out of breakneck speed with no restriction, and basically they go free because they are owned by some of the politicians, they are owned by some of the corporate guys that have influence and access to powerful people. So if you want to enforce safety, it should enforce all sides of the equation.
What do you make of the motorcyclists' reaction to traffic regulations, which the police have recorded to be resorting to many accidents along the major roads within the capital city?
Most of the bike riders do not go through any training, do not understand any traffic rules, safety rules. They just get a bike and get on the street. And sometimes there's major accidents. Not only that, you got 4 or 5 persons on the bike, little kids, 5 years, 6 years, and running at a breakneck speed. And so I do agree that they need to be restrained, and to some extent they need to manage the way they see safety. I would have thought that the police would have added some training before anybody get a license to drive a bike. Go through a training, go through some orientation, at least 1 day orientation, understanding safety, understanding all that process. And I think that would be helpful. You tell him to abide by a law he does not even understand. So I think the first stage is that foundational stage is to make sure he understands the traffic rules for which he will be held accountable. But you cannot allow him to go on the road. He get licenses. Some of you will go to the police and get licenses in a minute, and they go on the road. Police has a chance to say, before you get a license, come to an orientation for an hour or two. They don't do that. They allow the guys to hit the street. And then they begin to enforce the rule on the guy who went to you for approval. So somebody contradiction in your own policy.
Abdullah Kiatamba is an independent analyst. Here is Sankule Janko with the World of Sports.
Very warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Guinea booked their place at the men's Olympic football tournament in Paris after Eli Moriba's penalty seal a 1-0 playoff victory over Indonesia on Thursday. The midfielders' first half strike from 12 yards proved the difference at the Clairefontaine as Chile national secured qualification for the just their second Olympic Games according to CAF official website. With 16 teams lined up for this summer's event now complete, Guinea have been drawn in a daunting Group A alongside host France, USA and New Zealand. The decisive moment came on the half-hour mark when Al Ghassim was brought down in the box by Indonesia's Witan Suleiman after a rapid Guinea counter-attack. Moriba made no mistake from the resulting sport kick, lashing the ball beyond the reach of the Indonesian goalkeeper to put the African side ahead. Guinea had opportunities to extend their lead with Mohamed Souma's close-range effort hacked off the line shortly after the restart. But Indonesia rallied and went agonizingly close to an equalizer under her substitute Alfredo Dewanga's glancing header, drifting just wide. Dewanga was soon at the center of action again, conceding a penalty after fouling Ba in the box, an award that prompted angry protests from the Indonesian bench, and so coach Shian Ti-Yong dismissed. After a lengthy delay, Ba took responsibility from 12 yards himself, but could only strike the upright as Guinea missed the chance to put the results beyond doubt. Indonesia pushed for a late leveler, but Guinea's defense stood firm to seal the historic place at Paris 2024, 56 years after their Olympic debut in 1968. The hard work starts now for the West Africans as they prepare to take on the might of France, USA and New Zealand in the daunting group stage. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we have come to the end of this edition of Newslink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Krista Mukidi and Maodo Juf for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via our social media platforms, X formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. I am Augustine Cully. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 101.